This is Dylan Moore with IRETA TV coming to you today. It is Wednesday, May 4th, 2022, and today I have U.S. Congressional Candidate Matt Larkin here in studio with me. Matt is running for Washington State's District 8 and looking to unseat congressional incumbent Kim Schrier. Kim Schrier. Matt also formerly ran for Attorney General of Washington State, and depending on which vote tabulation machine you ask, he may have actually won. We don't know. But that's in the past, and Matt is now running for U.S. Congress, which is the thing that we're here to talk about today. So first of all, Matt, thank you for taking the time to come in and talk about your campaign.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dylan, for having me on.
Absolutely. So the first thing we got to know is, are you going to win? Right? And then so, looking at the political landscape, we've got this person, Kim Schrier, in a relatively, and I'm sure you'll get into the details on this, relatively blue district-ish. What do you think your chances are against the Democrat incumbent in Washington State?
I think our chances are great. Yeah. Frankly. In fact, in my Attorney General race just 2 years ago, year and a half ago, we won the 8th Congressional District. I won it with over 51%. Yeah. So that's telling. That's the best poll you can have is when people are actually in the ballot box pulling the lever. And they voted for me in the 8th Congressional with 51+%. So that's exciting. And guess what? 2022 is going to be even a better year for Republicans. So we're going to build on that 51. We're going to get 52, 53, maybe 55% of the vote in the 8th. So it's exciting stuff. It's not that blue of a district. In fact, Republicans held it for 30 years. And then in 2018, when Dave Reichert stepped down, he retired, and it was an open seat, and we lost it in a tough year. 2018 was not a friendly Republican year. Right. And that's when Kim Schrier picked it up. But now we're getting it back.
Well, and then I believe you mentioned this to me on the phone before we, came in here. Some redistricting happened as well. That looks like it may have made it even more favorable to a Republican candidate.
It did. It certainly made it more favorable to Republicans. They added the eastern 2/3 of Snohomish County to the district.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yep. Which is great. It's right where we want to be. We don't want the western third.
Right, where we are right now.
Yeah, exactly. It cuts east of I-5, which is great. And in fact, it helps me specifically as a candidate because I just ran statewide in 2020. Right. In fact, I still see my old signs up as I drive around, which is kind of fun.
Well, and then, I think that, do you feel that that's your biggest advantage is the fact that you already have the name recognition of running and going up against the sitting Attorney General statewide?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge advantage to have campaigned hard for 2 years in all 39 counties. That's a big advantage. We ran, $600,000 worth of ads through that race. And we're hitting doors and we're at every event, and that helps for sure. And it wasn't that long ago. Right. Feels like an eternity.
I remember the feeling of Bob Ferguson winning again, and
it was
pretty fresh in my mind, man.
Most of us haven't forgotten that. I'm sure my feeling was a little worse than yours.
Yeah, I won't disagree with you on that. Yeah. Well, so there's Kim Schrier, the Democrat incumbent. Yeah. What about the Republicans who are also going for the race? How do you feel about the primary?
You know what? We're feeling good about the primary. Yeah. We're focusing all of our lead on Kim Schrier. She's who we're focused on. I had a tough primary in my AG race, too, and we soared through that with the same message that I've got now. So we're charging forward. The fundraising's going great. We've got tons of volunteers. The other day we had a meeting on Team Larkin, and it was, what do we do with all these volunteers? We have so many. We've got to put them all to work. It's a good problem to have, and it's telling right now. People are fired up. I've got the grassroots support. And frankly, as the most conservative one in my race, in my primary, it's a good place to be.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of a more specific question that doesn't turn into flinging mud to other Republicans. But do you feel that there's even someone who it might be a close call, or do you think you just got it?
We're not taking anyone for granted. That's for sure.
Just focused on Kim Schrier.
Focused on Kim Schrier.
Okay.
Yeah. The other guys are running hard. They've got their niches, which is more the moderate populace of the Republican Party. We're running hard where we've always been, which is in the conservative lane. Yeah. Running unabashedly with conservative principles, because guess what? Those are winning ideas. Those are winning principles.
So let's take those principles to Washington, D.C. What would be the most important thing on your legislative agenda if you hit the floor?
Oh, my goodness.
Next year?
Every day Biden gives us a gift. It seems like every single day there's something new that pops up in the priorities list. The radical left is active, and they're out there, and they are trying to take advantage of this last little gasp of air that they have with full control of the federal government.
Right.
One thing that's personal to my wife, Shelly, and I are our 4 little kids. We've got a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And their education and their indoctrination, frankly, is appalling. So one of the top priorities I will have in Congress when I get there is to push through a Parental Bill of Rights, to get voices back to parents, and frankly, voices and choices back to parents.
What does that look like on the federal level? Because let me put it this way. The federal government's not supposed to have that much power. Did you know that? That in the United States, the federal government's not supposed to have very much power?
Yep, I did know that, and I'm a big believer in that.
So if you get a Parental Bill of Rights at the federal level, which awesome, great. What sort of impact does that have? Keeping in mind that individual states can go, maybe we agree with that, maybe we don't.
Yeah, well, we're hoping more of them agree with it than don't. And it's leading the way. It's leading by example. It's saying, hey, we're standing up for our kids. States join us, and we'd probably get 27 states just like that to jump on board, and hopefully more as we go.
Well, and would it be also analogous to the Roe v. Wade decision that may or may not have actually been done yet because somebody leaked something that they weren't supposed to, but it's looking like Roe v. Wade might be kicked out, and that doesn't make abortion illegal everywhere. It just kicks it back to the states, as we know.
Yep.
I mean, would a Parental Bill of Rights be something like that, where if the state has specifically addressed it, then it's whatever the state said, but if the state hasn't specifically addressed it, they kind of have to defer to whatever.
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's how we would treat it. And in that sense, states could add to it. They could make it more beneficial to parents. They could. Some states, unfortunately, probably wouldn't adopt it at all, and some would take some variation of it. But the point is we're standing up for parents who right now feel like they do not have a say in their kids' upbringing.
Well, can you give me an idea or an example of what a Parental Bill of Rights might contain?
Sure. It would contain an absolute right to know line by line what your tax dollars are going to within the school budget. How many dollars are going to pencils and how many are going towards union
trans
fees?
Rights.
or trans books, or it's transparency. Another one is an absolute right to attend unfettered your school board meetings. Shocking that we even have to. Isn't that crazy? As I say it out loud,
it's like, are we there?
Are we? How can you not do that already? I know, but they're cracking down on it, as you know. Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, is going after it.
Yeah.
This isn't Orwell. This is actually happening.
Well, it is Orwell. They're using that as a playbook, right?
Yeah. But we need some codified law that actually stands up for some of these things that we've taken for granted for too long, and now are being eroded and chipped away at.
Yeah. Other than parental rights, what else is up there on the top of your list?
Crime. Crime is a big
can the federal
deal.
It's the same thing.
Yep.
Isn't that more of a state thing? What can the federal government do about the crime?
The feds can do a lot.
Okay.
In fact, I rolled out my campaign slogan, gosh, it's been a long time now, but 8 months ago or so, make crime illegal again.
Right.
And it got national press. I've been on Fox News a whole bunch of times talking about it. Congress can do a lot. Congress can pass what I would call the bill, if I was sponsoring it, the Make Crime Illegal Again bill.
Right.
Where we tie federal dollars, federal grant money, to local law enforcement agencies. They're very dependent on federal money.
So you're saying that in order to get this money, you have to make property crime under $1,000 illegal again, say in San Francisco.
Well, that's a very abstract example, but sure, let's just use that example.
Yeah.
You pick a dollar amount, under 1,000, under 500, under 5,000. I don't know.
No, did you get the reference though? Like in San Francisco, the laws have changed where if someone goes into a store and steals something and it's not worth at least $1,000, the police can't come.
Isn't that just that new reality that we're living in? Seattle's not far off.
Exactly.
Yeah, And I've done ride-alongs with Seattle PD. In fact, I'm endorsed by the Seattle Police Guild, and they're demoralized right now. They feel like, why are we even here? We can't enforce the law. We can't enforce these street crimes.
You can't. What is the law now that if a criminal gets in a car and drives away, you can't chase him?
Yeah. And there's an interesting story. So I was doing a different ride-along with the state troopers, and just kind of hearing from them what their issues are, spending a whole shift with them in the car. And we're pulled over on I-5, and we're radaring people. And this car comes zooming along at, I think he was going 90, 88, or 90 miles an hour. So we flip on our lights, and we go, all right, let's go get him a ticket. And we pull out into I-5, and we get behind him, and our lights are blaring. And he speeds up to just accelerates out of our sight, weaving in and out of school buses and gas tanker trucks.
And you're not allowed to chase?
And I go, whoa, I'm like bracing, like, okay, this is going to be crazy chase that's about to happen. And he puts on his brakes, backs down to 60, and we pull back into the shoulder. And I said, what was that? And he said, we can't chase him. We cannot pursue. I said, the guy's going 115, weaving in and out of traffic. He goes, nope, we cannot
went from
pursue.
Speeding to reckless driving,
From speeding to reckless to evading arrest. And we couldn't do anything about it. And that was the eye-opening moment for me. And I said, so the people who do cooperate are the soccer moms, like my wife, who's
people who are following the law.
She's going 67 and not paying attention and gets pulled over. And guess what? She's not going to outrun you. She's going to pull over and cooperate. Those are the people who are actually getting punished. And the lesson that we're learning and that criminals are learning is, all right, just if a police officer pulls in behind you, just
run.
Run. That's a dangerous lesson in a society.
That's an incredibly dangerous lesson.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, so I guess after he gets in a wreck and kills a bunch of people, then you can go get him because he's not running anymore?
Well, then there's a whole bunch of lawsuits that entail. Because
he went faster because you chased him in the first place?
That's because you flipped your lights on and scared him, and then there's a ripple effect of causation. And I mean, it's just completely asinine, and that's the world we're living in, where it feels like down is up and up is down in Washington State right now.
What's the most frustrating thing that you find campaigning?
I've never been asked that question before. Gosh. As someone who's new to the game, it's interesting to sift through that one. I think it's frustrating sometimes getting people to see the vision that you have. I know the Washington that I want to see. I want it to be the Washington I grew up in, where I was proud of it.
Right.
I was proud to be from this state. This is a cool state.
Now you have to. I'm sorry, I'm from Washington. I'm
and
not from Seattle. Don't associate me with Seattle.
But we almost say it now with an air of shame.
I'm from the Soviet Socialist Republic of Seattle. I've said that a few times.
But you remember, as a child of I'm sure you grew up in the 90s, right? About my age, maybe a little younger than me. But we used to be a cool state and a cool city. I was born and raised in Seattle, a lifelong Washington guy. My family homesteaded here 165 years ago. So my whole life is in Washington. And until recently, I was really proud. But now it's just kind of this, frankly, this dumpster fire that's happening here.
It's a good way to put it.
But to get people to look past that and see what it could be again has been a challenge. Because people, especially voting Republicans, are demoralized right now.
So you would say that's one of the big frustrations? Is saying, look, have some vision, everybody. We can fix
some vision.
This.
We can bring this back. You just have to do A, B, and C. You have to get the right people elected to the right offices, and you have to have the right policies. And you
have to not give up.
You have to not give up.
And
that's what I hear too. I guess one of the more disappointing things I hear is, Matt, we are Republicans. We voted our whole life, but we don't feel like our voice matters anymore in Washington. We're not going to vote. That one stings.
You're like, I know it's bad, I know it's messed up, and I know the vote screwed up, but don't do
that.
But
that's not the answer. My goodness.
Yeah.
The answer is coming out in such big numbers that they can't steal it.
Mm-hmm.
Then
do what we can to fix it.
And then do what we can to fix it when we get there.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get, and I call them beachheads. We're not going to win statewide very easily, as we found out in 2020. But we need to pick races where we can actually win, take ground there, and then use them as launching points to other offices in the state.
Absolutely. Particularly with the democratic sentiment that's in the current air.
That's
I think that now is the time to push that button as hard as possible.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And we pick races where we can actually win. Don't spread our resources thin on every race, but pick the ones we can win, put the right person there, and then that person can go on to make big changes, and that person can. And
exactly.
It's a beachhead Normandy strategy, right?
Or island fighting strategy, one island at a time.
Yeah, island hopping. There you go.
What made you decide to run for this position, particularly after? Because I mean, you went for state executive, and now you're going for federal legislative. Tell me about that jump.
Sure. Well, what got me to run initially for Attorney General was I wanted to. First of all, I was sick and tired of seeing the state just spiral downward. I was sick of what I was seeing. We didn't feel safe anymore. I don't recognize Seattle anymore. I don't recognize what's going on in our communities, and I was just tired of it. And I said, what can I do to make a difference other than yelling at the TV every night when I come home from work? So after a lot of prayer and a lot of inward searching with my wife and I and our kids, we decided, well, this is the right step. You can make a big difference. You're qualified, and you'd be great at it, and you can make a big difference running for Attorney General as a conservative. You're a breath of fresh air right now. So when the dust settled from that race, the thought process was the same. How can we continue to make an impact? How can we make a difference? In the difference running statewide, where you affect all of Washington State, to running for Congress, where, guess what? I affect Washington State, but I get to help the other 49 states too in the process. Your focus is Washington, but in an indirect cause and effect, you're benefiting the whole country.
And I guess ironically, on top of that, you're actually you have to address a smaller voting population.
You do, yeah. You go from
the whole state to
running
the district
statewide to 7.5 million people. We were trying to get 7.5 million people to vote for me in a perfect world, and now I'm about roughly a little over 750,000 people, which is a microcosm of that.
Is campaigning a little easier this time around?
It's so different. It's so different. I had to be at 39 different Lincoln Day dinners at every single county, and all of their July 4th picnics, and you name it. And now it's a very, very condensed version of that. So it feels more manageable in that sense. But it's also way more individual voter contact, which I love. I love going door to door, and I love meeting and having more time with people. Not, hey, everybody, great to meet you all. I'm jumping in my car and going to the next county. Now I can sit and have coffee and really connect with people one-on-one. And I like that. And when I first got into my AG race, I was learning on the fly. And I remember saying, okay, I'm in. Let's get some door knocking on the calendar. Let's go do this. I got comfortable shoes. And everyone on my team just kind of looked at me like, what are you talking about? You don't go door knocking on a statewide race. It just doesn't make sense.
You don't have time.
It's not a good use of your time.
Yeah.
And now it is. So it's kind of fun for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. Both have their highs and lows. Running for Congress is great. I'm really enjoying it, and I feel like once I get there, it makes not just me winning the seat back, but we're making a huge difference because we'll be part of that majority that takes back the
wave
House.
That comes back, yeah.
The red wave. We're only 5 seats from taking back the entire House right now, the closest margin since World War II.
Can you visualize a day when Nancy Pelosi is not the Speaker of the House?
Yeah, I dream about it often. Yeah, I can. Oh my goodness, won't that be the day? And it will happen.
Just to not hear her voice, regardless of whatever she's doing, just to not see.
Yeah.
She's got
my
that,
goodness.
And it's not like a palsy twitch; it's like a drunken twitch. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, her day is near, and I think she bought a house in Florida not long ago, so she's eyeing retirement too, and we're going to help her with that. We're going to show her the door. Yeah. 5 seats. Come on, we're going to win the House back. Outside of it,
it's going to be a slaughter.
A miracle. We're not going to lose the House.
Yeah, and I suspect Senate too is going to.
That would be my hunch too. The House, I'm very bullish about. The Senate, I'm pretty bullish about.
Yeah.
I think we've got it. And in this race, the race I'm in, the 8th Congressional District race, is a top 10 race in the country. It's being watched nationally as one of these that we can win back. We can flip it back and take it. So that's really exciting. We're going to have the national party behind us, the NRCC and the RNC pushing, blowing wind into our sails. We're going to win this thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's the response that you're getting both from, I should say, what's the response you're getting from the Republican Party? What's the response you're getting from Republicans? And if you have a chance to talk to many of them, what's the response you're getting from non-Republicans?
Yeah, I've talked to all of those groups. Yeah. We'll start with Republicans. They're pissed off. They're fired up.
Yeah.
They are. I've never seen Republicans this mad. I thought that they couldn't get much madder
than 2020.
In 2020.
Yeah.
But now, a year and a half into Inslee's lockdowns, it just kind of ended, like
kind
a month ago. Kind of. Well, we're
still in emergency. It's still an emergency. Like the dictatorial powers remain. I'm just not going to wield them so wickedly.
But they thought it was bad then, and it had just started. And you would have never. I would have put money on the fact that it never would have drawn out another year and a half. So the fact that it's still drawn out, like what, a few weeks ago we just dropped the mask mandates, that's insanity.
But not all of them. In any healthcare or public transportation or whatever the heck else. And the business can still require it if they choose to do.
Yeah, which is how it should have been all along, by the way. Let the businesses decide and then move on.
Yeah.
And let the individuals decide. There's a novel concept. But
bizarre. Yeah.
But the point is I thought they were mad in 2020, and they were, and I was. They're really, really mad now because in 2020 we still had a president that we liked,
right?
And we don't now. In fact, somehow we lost the Senate in the process.
Yeah. Well, thanks to Joe Manchin.
Yep. Okay.
Not quite.
Good point. Good point.
Not quite.
Good point. But so that's what I'm hearing. They're just fed up. They feel like they're demoralized. They feel like their vote doesn't count. They're mad. They feel like they're indoctrinating our kids. They feel like they're sexualizing our kids, which they are.
Right. And how many TikTok videos of kindergarten teachers do we need that are literally saying that's what they're doing?
Yeah.
Do we need to see before we accept the fact that they're grooming?
That's exactly right. And we need to do something about it. And Republicans, thankfully, that anger that I'm feeling seems to be turning into activism.
Mm-hmm.
It seems, at least now, when we record this in early May, that is the case. People are fired up. They're getting off their butts, and they're marching with signs, and they're going door to door, and they're talking to neighbors, and pastors are coming out now, finally, to talk about things. They've been quiet for a long time. But it seems like the right and the conservatives are activating, which is great. And I'm part of that. I'm proud to be part of that, to be that tip of the spear. I'll be the voice, Let's move this country.
So what about the Republican Party? How are they responding to you?
They're great. I have a good relationship with the state party.
Yeah.
And I've got a good relationship with the national party, the NRCC and the RNC.
And what about the individual counties that...
Great.
Yeah.
As far as in my primary, I'm the only one who's been endorsed by a county party, county Republican Party, Pierce.
Great.
Yeah, the Pierce County Republican Party unanimously endorsed me for this seat.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So we're really excited and blessed and honored to have that.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
To have them behind me, the second biggest county in the state, second biggest county in the district, we're thrilled to have that. Hope more counties fall in line. They may or may not. But we're proud to have that one for sure. And the county, there's been no hostility at all. The county parties seem to be all on board with our message and what we're doing. At worst, I think they'll just stay neutral till the primary. But you know what? Pierce took a chance and endorsed me, and we're going to reward them for that when we win this primary on August 2nd.
Awesome. Well, and then what about the third and possibly the most important component?
Okay. The
non-Republicans.
The non-Republicans. Yeah, you know what we're hearing as we talk to folks who are not Republicans is they're fed up and they're pissed off. And it's not everything that makes a man, but it's the issues that seem to cross party lines. The crime, the unsafe communities.
The needles.
The what?
The needles.
The needles. Yeah, when you put it that way, it instantly paints a picture, right?
Yeah.
They can't go into their parks anymore. They just can't.
Yeah.
There's homeless camps. There's trash. There's feces. There's needles. They're afraid to walk their kids around the block in a stroller because they're just kind of unsure of the safety. They certainly don't want to go into downtown Seattle anymore, catch a Mariners game.
No way. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a crossover issue. We have, believe it or not, we've got some Democratic friends. And with kids our age, and this is what we talk about at play dates or at dinners or, you know, in backyard barbecues. We're so glad you're doing this, Matt. I hear this all the time. Bless you. We're so glad you're doing this because it's about time someone did something about it. Mm-hmm. And I think they're just kind of like, they're in their head, they're thinking our party, the Democratic Party, doesn't seem to be doing anything about it. So it's just refreshing to have someone who's willing to talk about it, someone who's willing to actually raise their hand, put on a bulletproof vest, and step to the front lines and try to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really good to hear, because, I mean, to say that the Democratic Party isn't doing anything about it, I think is a little nice way to say it.
That was a soft way of putting it.
They have had no platform.
None.
Nothing.
And they're doubling down the few things that they do.
Yeah.
Few things they do talk about as solutions, they're doubling down on, like throwing more money at it.
Yeah.
In a black hole.
Yeah. So, red wave.
Yep.
Let's presume that the House and the Senate go.
Okay. I like that.
We still have a Democrat in office.
Yeah.
And then overlooking the fact that he's demented and he's probably a puppet and whatever, just looking at the fact that he's a Democrat.
Sure.
Right. What can the two houses do with a president that can just veto everything? Because, I mean, you'll have the House, but you won't have supermajority.
Sure. Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Do you need supermajority in both to overturn a veto? Okay. Yeah. You won't have a supermajority in the Senate.
That's true. True, in the Senate. I'm hoping in the House. No, great question. What can you actually do? Well, for one, we can stop all judicial appointments. If your presumption's correct that we have the Senate.
All judicial appointments.
We can stop them dead in their tracks, which is a huge, huge win for us.
Well, as Donald Trump has shown.
As Trump showed on the flip side, right?
Yeah, very clearly that those judicial appointments are a big deal.
Yeah, they're huge. And Biden is breaking Trump's record for judicial appointments right now. It's a factory of pumping them out, the nominations. And frankly, if I was a Democrat, I'd be thrilled about that.
Right.
But we can stop that dead in its tracks in January. Secondly, guess what? The House controls the purse strings. We control the budget. So he will come to us for funding, and we will say no.
Or, if you want this, we want all these things.
It's a huge leverage point. Mm-hmm. If you want this, we want this. I imagine there'll be a few of those moments where we try to compromise with him on things. But at minimum, it's a huge leverage, and that's what we need right now. He has zero pushback. Right now, it's a blank check to get through whatever he wants. Mm-hmm. If we take back the House and the Senate, his agenda is dead in the water, and he becomes a lame duck right out of the gate, especially because people are viewing this as his last term. Maybe not him, but the entire world is viewing this as his last term.
Yeah.
You just don't know how he has the cognitive ability to go another 6 years.
Do you wonder what drugs they pump him full of occasionally?
Had that thought.
Before he
had that thought.
I mean, particularly when he had to do the debates during the campaign. It's like they must have. They probably had a tube connected to the floor of like, we have to just keep pumping him full of these drugs, or else he's just gonna collapse.
You know what? It's really sad to watch. And I was talking off the air about this with you, but it's not even a political issue. It's sad to watch a president, an old man, just kind of slip cognitively in front of the entire world.
Yeah.
On stage, in front of our allies and in front of our enemies. And it's sad, and we hope that he rides off into the retirement sunset soon. And but it's certainly not an office fit for someone like that. No. We need sharp people. So yeah, I think Biden it'll instantly send him into a lame duck status. Mm-hmm. Most presidents would be thinking about their second term, so he wouldn't be thinking of it in terms of lame duck time. But in this case, a one-term president like Joe, it puts his agenda, stalls his agenda completely, and makes.
And not that he's gotten anywhere with that agenda anyway. I mean, do you remember there was like Build Back Better? I think he was lying about the student debt forgiveness. He was lying about the Green New Deal. But I mean, he had some things that wanted to be done. Zero of them, have gotten through.
Yeah.
Oh, they wanted to do the voter reform. I just remember that one.
Yep, that one fell flat.
Died. Expanding the Supreme Court, dead.
Build Back Better fell through. Infrastructure passed. But that was it.
It was watered down by the time
he signed it. But that's it. Judges and infrastructure is the two things he's ever going to get, because we will take the House back at minimum.
Right.
And then he's done.
So Republicans are famous for snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Where at the 11th hour, they screw something up.
Yep.
How do Republicans not screw this up when they get one or both houses?
Oh, once we get elected, how do we not screw it up?
Not screw it up?
Well, we need spine-steeled conservatives in there.
Yeah.
And that's part of my issue. I'm sick and tired of sending people to Olympia and sending people to D.C. and then hoping that they're going to vote the right way on key issues. And a lot of them don't. They've kind of lost my trust, frankly. So by sending the right people to D.C., who I know are going to vote the right way on conservative core issues, that's going to make a big difference. People of principle, people who aren't going to compromise to get certain tax increases, people who aren't going to horse trade for certain things.
Right.
You need someone who's going to stand their guns, and frankly, Republicans are guilty of it, and I hate to say it as a Republican. But when we get majorities in the past, we squander it a lot of times.
Just totally screw it up.
Yep.
Just totally screw it up.
I don't know what happens. I don't. And maybe when I'm there, I'll figure it out. I have a
suspicion.
Maybe we get in cahoots with lobbyists.
Republicans that aren't quite Republicans. And when it's the 11th hour, and then there's only a 51 majority in the Senate, the two that aren't quite Republicans go, eh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're not in.
It becomes apparent who's who.
Yeah.
And it happens on the House side, too.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so adamant about running for this seat in this race, because I do not want to send one of those, call them what you will, the Rhino Republicans to D.C.
And you're saying that you're not one?
I'm not. Good. Absolutely I'm not. I have core conservative principles. I'm not doing this for any other reason other than I want to see conservative change.
So I want to dive into the weeds a little bit on something specific.
Okay.
This is the key issue that I wanted to bring up.
Oh.
So, in the Leviathan of the entirety of the U.S. federal lawmaking apparatus, I think that there is one holy grail, both for the people who want to see this country continue down the path of freedom that it was founded on, and for those who would like to take it away.
Okay.
And I think that holy grail is the definition of domestic terrorism. So, as I'm sure you're aware, in 9/11, after the Patriot Act was signed and everything got better and more patriotic, the definition of domestic terrorism changed. So, Richard, I have it ready. Richard, can you pull it up?
Perfect.
So, this is U.S. Code 18, Section 2331, Part 5, in case anybody wanted to memorize that. So, and I'll just read this definition right here. So the term domestic terrorism means activities that A, involve acts dangerous to human life that are in a violation of criminal laws of the United States or of any state, and B, here's where it gets funny, and obviously you've got a law background, right?
I do, yeah.
B, appear to be intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, 1, or 2, appear to be intended to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion.
Okay.
Or 3, appear to be intended to affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping. That third one makes sense, right? And then 3C, the third part is it has to occur primarily within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States.
Sure.
So, with your lawyer hat on, how do you feel about that Part B?
Part B, well, what jumps out to me immediately is how many members of the United States Senate on the Democratic side have already started doing that, right? Threatening the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Schumer was doing it weeks ago, and I think he just did it yesterday.
Well, and then to appear to intend, to intimidate.
Appear to be intended, so that's very subjective.
Well, it's like 3 layers of subjective, right? Yeah. To the point where I think the way you're looking at me right now, I feel intimidated. You appear to be intending to intimidate me, and I'm part of the civilian. Keep the backup. I'm part of the civilian population. Bam! According to this, domestic terrorist.
I guess so.
So now, right now, as it stands, someone could be labeled a domestic terrorist who fits this definition, which can be literally frickin' anybody based on what we just saw. However, they cannot be charged as a domestic terrorist unless they are a part of an international organization. So this is why we're seeing school board members, the parents going to school board members.
And being labeled.
The parent My daughter got raped at school. I'm mad. I go to the school board. I get angry. I get thrown out. And suddenly there's this label of domestic terrorist thrown around. And it's like, what the heck just happened? This is what happened. There was an appearance to intend to intimidate the influence of the policy of a government.
Sure. I think when this was passed, we never could have even foreseen that.
The use of that.
The use of that.
So, and then also in, right now we've got the January 6th prisoners that are being held indefinitely with cruel and unusual punishment that can't seem to have any domestic terrorism charges stick. You know, they get hit with trespassing or vandalism or something like that. It's because they're not connected to an international organization. So, the Democratic Party and Liz Cheney-type Republicans would like to remove the international requirement from the domestic terrorism charge, which means anybody who fits that definition, they no longer need to be connected to an international organization. They could be labeled and charged as a domestic terrorist. So the question I have for you is, where do you stand on something like that?
Well, I mean, again, it goes back to the intent. I think the intent was... It was very clear when this was passed. It was 2002.
What? I was going
to say early.
I can't remember. Was it the day after 9/11, or did they take it? I was 14 or 15 at the time. Yeah.
I was 18. But the intent was clear at the time, and a lot of times with legislation that happens. You rush a law through with a clear intent. The whole country understands the intent. But as things, I can't believe 9/11 was 20 years ago.
Right.
But things change, definitions change, and they never would have imagined a country where school boards are punishing parents
as domestic terrorists.
As domestic terrorists. It cuts both ways in this case because you have groups like BLM and you have groups, Antifa.
That don't get charged.
Yes.
But, I mean...
So...
sorry to interrupt you, but we could see that this is clearly could be used as a political weapon, Soviet style. Because I mean, if you've ever read Alexander Solzhenitsyn's The Gulag Archipelago, I believe it was Section 58 of the Soviet Charter, Constitution, or whatever the heck they had, that addressed political counter-revolutionary whatever. And so if you said, "Well, I don't like Stalin," you got hit with Article 58. That's how it worked. This looks like our Article 58 from the Soviet thing, where any political speech that whoever's in charge doesn't like could go, bam, you appear to intend to intimidate somebody.
Yeah.
And then if we could charge you as the domestic terrorist, then it's just...
Yeah, it's a slippery slope.
It's just gates open.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it goes back to John Adams with the Alien and Sedition Acts, right? Anytime you criticize the government, you could be charged. Thankfully, that one didn't get much traction back in 1801
or whatever. Yeah.
Close. I mean, within a couple years. But it's a very, very slippery slope when you start infringing on that First Amendment, the right to speak, the right to gather. These are things that we need to protect and hold sacred. Yes, there's a public safety component to everything, and that has to be addressed in the legislation, but we certainly need to tighten that up to make that a much tighter defined statute.
So speaking of tightening it up, would you be against sponsoring a law or a resolution? And I think a resolution might be the way to go because if Biden's in there, you can get it passed without the president, that clarifies that it's not the intention of Congress to separate the international requirement from the domestic terrorism charge.
Yeah, absolutely. I would push that. I think that's needed now. We're reaching a point in this country where everything seems radicalized.
Yeah. Like, I mean, the fact that, let's just go over what actually happened, right? So we had all these parents getting mad. They appeared to be intending to intimidate the government. What was it? The National School Board Association writes the letter to the Department of Justice asking for this to happen. An apology letter gets sent out. What's his name? Garland?
Merrick Garland.
Yes. He says, "Oh, it's not happening," and then there's a whistleblower that says, "Well, here's the letter saying that it's happening."
Yep. Right.
So it's being used to weaponize, and I think there is a considerable, like I said, it's a holy grail for those who would like to take freedom away.
Sure.
To say, okay, we got half of it, we just need the other half, which is to disconnect the international component from the charge. So you would be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then what's next, right? Where it's not just school boards, it's town council meetings.
It's freaking anybody. look at that definition.
Neighbors
right?
against neighbors.
Yeah.
And it becomes a really, really dangerous situation. In retrospect, I'm shocked that it's taken this long for it to actually materialize in this way. You know, we haven't abused it. I mean, we have, but it's not nearly. It's been on the books for 20 years.
Well, I would say if I'm evil, and I want to do something evil in a place that makes it difficult for evil to be done, if I pass a law, then immediately use it. People go, I see what you did there. If I pass a law and I go, I'm going to wait on that one, and then 20 years later, you do the thing, and everyone goes, you're not allowed to do that, and then I can go, well, look at this law that we passed 20 years ago. And everyone's like, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That would be a good strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right. Maybe it was more conniving than we thought back in the Patriot Act days.
Yeah.
But certainly it needs to be addressed now. Absolutely.
So going back to the question I asked before, which is, okay, what do you do with a president that can't, or they can veto everything, even if you get control of the House and the Senate? A resolution doesn't require the president to do anything. If both houses pass it, it's passed, right? And then a resolution doesn't have any teeth on its own, but it allows the lawmaking body to say, okay, this is our intention. Now we can use this as the precedent to start going back and looking at the law and saying, well, does the law line up with our intention? And that could be the springboard to move forward.
Sure.
Do you think that's a good strategy?
I do. I think a resolution's a great way to handle something like this.
Yeah.
It starts a conversation. It's a springboard to action maybe further along when we do have a president who supports it in the White House. Whoever that will be, and it'll be a Republican in 2024. I'm optimistic.
Yeah, me too.
So, yeah, I think that's a perfect way to move forward because we need to find creative solutions to fix a lot of these problems.
That's great to hear.
Yep.
What sort of support do you need at this point?
Support as a candidate.
As a candidate.
Yeah, we need it all. This is not the time to sit by your TV. It's not. It's time to get up off your butts and get out and help. We're 3 months from primary day. If you're a conservative and you don't recognize this place anymore like I do, it's time to get behind me.
Yeah.
We need financial support. We've got a great website you can donate at. It's larkin4congress.com.
Can you pull that up? Was it the number 4?
The number 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I always spell it out. LARKIN, the number 4, Congress. You can learn more about me and my race. You can see cute pictures of my kids up there. The reason I'm fighting. And you can get involved. There's a place to sign up. We don't just need money. We need activists. We need volunteers. We need people willing to put up signs. We need people willing to talk to neighbors. We need people willing to stand on street corners and wave signs and put bumper stickers on their cars. This is a grassroots movement. So we need everyone who's willing to help. And here's the good news. Even if you don't live in this district, this affects you. There it is, right there. Even if you don't live in the 8th Congressional District, this race affects you.
Even if you don't live in Washington.
Isn't that the crazy part?
Yeah.
But it's true.
Yeah.
Even if you don't live in Washington State, this affects you. Because guess what? Taking back the House affects every single person in this country. And taking back the House runs through the 8th Congressional District in Washington State.
Have you tried to get an endorsement from Trump yet?
We've applied for it. We're waiting to hear.
Yeah.
I think he's probably, from what I'm hearing, he's working his way through those impeachment voters right now.
Yeah.
The Joe Kents and the Lauren Culp races. I know he's endorsed both of those guys, and he's still checking off his enemies list right now. But he's slowly working his way down to races more in the peripheral.
Well, did you hear about what happened last night in Indiana?
With Vance? Oh, yeah.
Well, so Vance is one of 55. So Trump had 55 endorsements between Ohio and Indiana. 100%. 55 out of 55 made it through the primary.
I hadn't read that statistic. That was just last night.
That's not even unheard of. That's like when you're talking about quantum mechanics and you're like, okay, there's a 1 in a 50 million quadrillion chance of this happening, and occasionally it happens because in quantum mechanics things happen really fast. It can happen that way. It's like that's level of probability of something like that happening.
Yeah. Well, we're optimistic we're going to get it. We've applied. My consulting team was very well connected to Trump. They were his campaign managers in his presidential race. Yeah. So we've got a good pipeline there. We've got the right message. He knows that I'm an America First candidate. He knows I've always been supportive of him and his agenda. And that separates me from the other guys in my race, frankly. We're going to get that endorsement. And we're going to march forward through August and take the fight to Kim Schrier. But it certainly will help when we get it. That's for sure. The only question is, do we get it soon enough?
Right.
Because he's, like I said, he's working his way through these other races.
I bet he's pretty busy. I bet he's got a stack of requests.
He's got a stack that big. And he said, which ones backstab me? I'm going to endorse those first with the impeachment votes. That's what he's looking at. Which ones are the Senate races? Because those are crucial. And he made some picks there. And now he's kind of working on these other races in his mind that aren't quite as...
Right. And I'm sure it's difficult because he's like, Matt Larkin, I've never heard of this guy.
Yeah.
How do I figure out? Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I guess one thing, if I know you're listening, President Trump, so I'll just tell you, I was the guy who ran against Bob Ferguson, who sued you 80 times, 80-plus times, installed your...
That's it? I figured that's what he just did all day. I figured it'd be 800.
I don't think he did anything else.
Yeah.
But Bob was the leading litigator against President Trump throughout his entire 4 years, and I was the guy who the guy who took the fight to Bob Ferguson. So we're hoping he sees that, and that, that means something, and hopefully we get that endorsement. We're gonna win even if we don't get it, but it would sure help to get it.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you that's on the top of your mind that's really important that you'd like anybody listening to this to know?
Gosh. Well, about my background, maybe, or my
tell me about your background and your motivation.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, like I mentioned, lifelong Washington guy, grew up here, family roots here, went to Gonzaga for law school, then went past law school and got an LLM degree, which nobody...
What's that?
Like less than 1% of attorneys go on to get them. It's another degree past law school.
Is it
it's a specialty?
Does LLM stand for something in Latin?
It's Latin.
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
I won't bore you with that. It's a master's of law is what it's called. The law degree is a doctorate. Then you can have the option to get the master's in a specialty area. I did that, and then I went and worked for President Bush. I was in the White House as a speechwriter and as attorney for him. Did that. My last day was his last day. Obama was getting sworn in, and we were packing up our offices and moving out, which was crazy to be a part of that transition. Republicans weren't getting hired in D.C. at that time, so I moved back to Washington State. I'd met my wife at the White House, so we got married.
So you're no stranger to the area.
No, to D.C.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I've been in and around D.C. unfortunately for a long time, but my roots are in this Washington. Believe it or not, I care way less about that Washington. Serving in Congress, I would 10-to-1 prefer that the nation's capital was in Woodinville and not D.C.
Yeah.
But it's a necessary evil. You got to go back there and roll up your sleeves and get the job done. But I moved out of there, came back here, took a job as a criminal prosecutor in Pierce County. Did that until I got a call from my dad and brother to come work for the family company. We own a manufacturing business here. About 600 employees. We make waterworks pipeline products and things that bring clean drinking water to people all over the world. We connect water pipes. Third generation business. We're proud of it. It's a big part of our family. And I worked there for a decade and then started to realize that we're losing our state. Started to realize that, geez, if we don't do something, if good people don't step up and run, we're going to have...
It's just going to...
We're the frog in the boiling pot.
Yeah.
And we're at a simmer right now. So I decided I was qualified and I should do it. The easy thing is to stick your head in the sand and pretend like it's not happening. But the hard thing to do is to raise your hand and say, here I am, send me. I'll be the tip of the spear right now, which is what I've done for 3 years. And I don't regret a minute of it. I feel like we're making the changes that we want to see, and we're trying to. And I can look my kids in the eye every night when I tuck them in and say, you know what, your dad's
fighting back,
doing everything he can do for you. And I couldn't live with myself 20 years from now if I didn't. So we're people of faith. We go to Timberlake Church in Redmond. It's a big part of our lives, and this was a calling, frankly. There's no other way to put it. I felt a calling to step up, and whenever you ask God to use you, be careful.
You sure? You sure you want me to?
It's dangerous 2 words, or use me, because he will. And that's what we're doing.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, if you didn't have anything else,
no.
Perfect. This has been Dylan Moore with I Read a TV, And I've had Matt Larkin, who, again, is the U.S. Congressional Candidate for Washington 8th District.
That's right.
Whose website is
LarkinForCongress.com.
Awesome. Yeah. And then with IRETA TV, you can find us at IRETA.tv, and you can follow us at the social media of your choice. I was telling Matt here, which I say every time now, we have been banned from YouTube.
It's a badge of honor.
We spoke against the COVIDian religion and questioned the efficacy of the, how do I want to say it, the gene modification drug, commonly known as the COVID vaccine, and that got us kicked off really quickly. But we're okay with that. Like you said, it's a badge of honor.
It's a badge of honor. Yep. Wear it proudly.
So, yeah, you can go on IRETA.tv, find whatever social media of your choice you like to follow us at, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.